Hello, and welcome to the Modern Romantic Podcast, where we celebrate and inspire romanticism through passionate people doing incredible things. I am the stage manager of your local production with a note to stop eating in costume. Hi, I'm Trey, and I'm joined by the costume designer who saw you, Rebecca, eating that cookie in costume, Emily. Hi, Emily.
That was pretty good. Do you know how hard it is to get chocolate out of rhinestones if it's melted? Like, stop.
Or like oil stains, greasy oil stains out of satin.
Right?
It
Right.
is
Yeah.
so hard.
We
Uh,
know.
we feel your pain out there. Once again, by the puns, you can probably tell who our guests are tonight. But Emily, would you do us a favor and introduce our fantastic guests tonight?
I would love to. We have a duo here tonight. We have Len Jenkin, who is an American playwright and novelist, teamed up with Sanford, who is a creative director, and we're really excited to talk theater with both of them. So, welcome to the show, guys.
Thanks.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, thanks for
Yeah,
being here.
absolutely.
Hi.
So I really want to dive in because you both are working in a creative space for a combined theater. And if you wouldn't mind, for our listening audience, can you tell us a little bit about the theater that you both are part of?
The theater I founded 2021, I think it was called the Tent Theater. And
Mhm.
it's I was responding to what I felt in the air of a um, indifference or even sometimes a seeming hostility of the outside world towards aging artists. And most particularly, I'm focused on playwrights because that was my whole career, uh, producing new American plays at Playwrights Horizons. So to me, I was stepping into my seniority, and I thought, oh, it's not only responding to something I see out in the world that needs addressing, but I'd also be helping myself find something to do besides golfing or fishing or something.
And what a cool thing to do. I find that to be way cooler than golfing or fishing.
Thank
Sorry,
you.
Josh.
It's okay, Josh. I got your back.
And I will introduce Len because when I was at Playwrights Horizons, Playwrights Horizons did not produce Len. We did some readings of his, but to me, he was always the cool kind of writer I aspired to support. Uh, and so he was one of the first people I called up to ask if he wanted to join the tent when I was putting it all in motion.
So what's behind the name The Tent?
Well, that's a good question. I had this a phrase. There's room under the tent had been with me for a while because people talk about the divisiveness of our culture, and it's true of the artistic culture as well. And there was a lot of important self-reflection that was happening in the artistic circles. Uh, I felt what was missing as we rightly focused on diversity was what about that doesn't mean that we should jettison all writers. Um, and so I'd say, there's room under the tent for us all. If you want more people to join your cohort, make the tent bigger. You don't kick people out of the tent. You open it up wider, and that's where the image came from.
I love that. I love that so much. I've heard a similar statement about making a bigger table to have fit more people at your meal, but similar to the tent. I love that.
Thanks. And there was also as I got to about 25 members, we actually addressed together as a collective what we thought our name should be, and through a process of elimination and voting and all sorts of cool and funny stuff. We came up with the tent collectively.
Yeah, and it also has a little bit of an echo of the circus or a carnival or that kind of moving show, and that's a nice thing about it as well for me.
I do gotta ask, who's the ringleader, though, if we're gonna go with the circus analogy?
That's Tim. I
No, that
think.
would be Amy. She's off directing right now. I have a Amy Hayes is my wife, and she's
Okay.
the partner. We're co-artistic directors of the tent, and right now she's directing Len's play, and we loaded in the theater today, which is exciting and fraught moment in the life of a play, and so anything we need to embarrass someone by, we can embarrass her.
And just for a listening audience, that play opens up on February 3rd, correct?
Correct.
Yeah, that's the first performance, but the actual opening night is the 7th.
We have a nice little preview period.
There's some previews, yeah.
That's so awesome. And
we only run until the 22nd. I'm going to interrupt to make sure that this is the moment to promote what we're doing.
Sure.
So we only run. It's a short run at a really nice theater in Hell's Kitchen, the 53rd Street. So, okay, I'll leave it at that.
Oh, so for I'm assuming by Hell's Kitchen, that's New York City.
New York City.
Yeah, it is.
53rd between 10th and 11th.
Is there another Hell's Kitchen that you know of, Trey?
I had a really dark joke in mind, but I'm going to save that for another time. So we'll.
The 10th. I'm sorry.
We'll leave it
people,
at that.
People from New York know where that is, so
yeah.
You know, it's easy to get to, so people
you can
should
find
come around and take a look.
Okay. Yeah, you should. The10theater.com is the website. You can also find them on Instagram and Facebook and LinkedIn, it looks like. So just go to the10theater.com. You can find everything you need. Very cool.
Yeah. Truthfully, when I was looking at the website, normally when I see a creative team or like a page dedicated to a creative team or meet our writers, I see kind of like a handful. The one thing that truly surprised and delighted me was how many writers that you truly have on staff there. It is not just 5 and it's not just 10. It is like a couple dozen writers. How did you recruit all of those writers? What was that networking process like?
Well, when I first started out to have the tent and was just that, first it just came to me. And then the next thing I know, I thought, oh, that actually sounds like it could be a real thing. And so I had heard anecdotally from friends who are writers or friends of writers that it was an inhospitable atmosphere for a lot of writers. Theaters that had really helped make the career of writers, and most particularly vice versa. Theaters who had gained success on the backs of productions of writers. A lot of writers would feel like their submissions weren't even read. The artistic directors had moved on. They had new people. They just felt kind of lost in the circus. So I started asking them if they thought it could be. Was there a need for it? And overwhelmingly, no one was without a harrowing, unpleasant story. And so I said, let's do something. Mainly what I said to them, I want to create a space where you know that your play is always welcome here. And I guess the answer to how do I recruit people, I was in the new play business, producing plays as an artistic director for 30 years. And so I knew a lot of people. And there even people who I hadn't produced, I was friendly with for one reason or another. So it wasn't hard recruiting because there's a need and there was no one. Well, I shouldn't say there's no one else doing it. Right about the time we formed the tent, I heard about another initiative sponsored by the Foundation of the Dramatists Guild, uh, basically an award of recognition towards senior writers, and it was called the Legacy Playwrights Initiative. Um, and that was, I think the money, it was a prize given to, first it was 3 writers, and then in subsequent years it's been 2 writers. I'm not sure what the amount is, but it's different than what we're doing because what they're doing is recognizing the work over time of some important overlooked writers. And what we're doing is celebrating the current work of the same demographic. So, which that explains us doing Len's play. Len, how is it that we live?
I wrote that play maybe 4 years ago or a little more. Right? I should say something else. It's great you noticed how many writers are involved with the tent. And it's a large number, but should also mention with most theaters in the United States, there are no writers involved with the theater. There's no writers who are actively involved in decisions the theater makes, in ideas the theater has. And so this is particularly extraordinary in that way.
Because they normally, if I understand the process correctly, they normally purchase the rights to produce a play or a musical or what the theatrical work may be. And then from there, the creative team kind of develops their plan of attack for developing for the stage.
Yeah,
Am I interpreting that correctly so far?
I think so.
I'd say so, yeah.
Yeah. Well, when you talked about acquiring, very little money exchanges hands here, but we did earn the right to produce Len's play from him, and he gets I don't know how we pay you, weekly or maybe.
It all goes through, I don't want to get into money details, but
Yeah.
it's this in this particular case, it's leased by the publisher of it. So
Okay.
they handle it.
And I guess I feel like there are way more than the 50 odd writers that we have now who deserve it, who have the similar story and deserve attention. But we have, in addition to producing a play here and there, we have ongoing programs which are really towards build. I mean, this may sound like a cliche, but it is really, really important, which is building community. Writing plays is that's one reason why I was so desperate to form a company or do something when I left Playwrights Horizons, because it's a community effort, and I miss my friends who are my colleagues and coworkers, and and that impulse came from there. So, but there are more. We got to about 50, and we said, Amy likes to say we're a pilot program. We started about 2 years ago. We said we'd do it for 3 years and then look to see what more needs to happen. We're in a really good place because we're on the cusp of finishing. We're in the middle of that 3rd year, and if we want to extend the benefits, and the benefits are community, but they're also, we have gatherings, we do readings at bookstores. We just did our first of those. We have cold readings and sometimes rehearsed readings, like once a month. So we've done about 22 of those.
Nice.
Those are really great events when you haven't been in a rehearsal room before, because you collect colleagues, friends who are actors. You come into the room, people haven't seen each other for a long time. I was surprised and delighted that these readings were so embraced by our beloved actors. By the way, I'll say also that at every single reading, an actor would approach me and say, "It is so important that you're doing these readings." The context being, I don't think you all are in the theater business, but one of the things that's happened in the last couple of years is places that specialize in development of plays and playwrights, like the Lark Theater and the Humana Festival in Kentucky and Sundance, and there are several others. New Dramatist is under threat. It's just hanging on. A lot of these programs have gone away. So the timing is um, important that someone is still keeping development going forward.
Sure. Well,
Yeah.
it's you don't just stop writing; you keep going. And I'm a huge fan of Sondheim, and Sondheim continued to develop new works up until his passing. And I think about some other great composers. My background is in music, excuse me. Um, I I think about all these works. You never stop giving your artistic self to your project work. So why not also focus on the most current things?
And sometimes you even get better
Yes.
at it. Sometimes.
I think because it's a communal activity, that's where the misunderstanding enters, as if uh, plays are created in one-offs, not as a process of artistic growth and transformation, which we would expect of any artist. I a little event in my life that I've shared almost every time I've talked about the tent. Early on, when I was considering the beginning of the tent, I went to a Jasper Johns exhibit, which was at, I think, Museum of Modern Art, or was it the Whitney? I should know, but and at the conclusion of the tour of his life's work, we entered a small room, and there was a mural, uh, probably like 20 by 20, uh, two of them, not murals, real paintings. Uh, and he did them when he was 93 and 91.
Wow.
Wow.
Uh, and, artists don't stop being artists.
No.
So that was a real motivator for me.
Yeah, I feel like it's about creativity. Like, what are you doing if you're not being creative somehow?
We another felicitous thing that happened recently was a woman who's become uh, our managing director, Eileen Phelan. She has a similar story to you all, from what I understand. She was surfing for our, things that were going on in the theater, and came upon our website and thought it sounded cool, and emailed me. And I'd heard of her because she used to produce the Obies, and I
Yeah.
loved the Obies. I used to go every year to them. Um, and she said, I'm between jobs, and this sounds really cool, and uh, can I come talk to you? And maybe there's something I can do for you. And one thing led to another, and it was really like a godsend, because Amy and I have been working hard, and we've had some internships that we've sponsored, uh, and we've had these writers groups, and all the different offerings we have. But it's real. There's so much potential for the tent, because I think it's something the whole culture needs to um, respect its elders. To tell you, to put it bluntly. So I feel like we have something we can demonstrate and then share, um, hopefully, and it
And for
helps to have people
yeah,
to do it.
and for our listeners and viewers who don't know what the Obies are, can you explain? One of you explain that it's their awards,
Yeah,
right?
I
Well,
guess
Len has the Obies.
I
I
guess
have
I
one.
could.
Yeah.
I have a few of them in my back pocket. I guess it began as a creation of this newspaper that's now gone, called the Village Voice.
Okay.
And they began these awards for sort of downtown or what you'd call off Broadway theater, where there were awards for Broadway shows, the Tonys and such. And they established the Obies for smaller theaters to get recognition. And they did it very well because they would throw a big party and it was a big mob scene. And if you picture, there's no way to picture this, picture a very grungy, kind of crazy version of the Tony Awards with a big crowd and interesting presenters and people. And they did this for a whole lot of years. And the newspaper's gone, but the awards somehow continue, I think. Tim,
Yeah.
correct me if I'm wrong.
You're right.
I don't know how, because it used to be a creature of this newspaper, but they're still ongoing. And it
That's
was
wonderful.
a terrific thing. Yeah, and still is.
If you don't mind me asking, what Obies do you have? Or
Oh,
what
God.
have you won?
Oh, geez, I barely remember. I know I won one for directing, which I'm particularly pleased by. That's not the main thing I do. And two plays of mine got Obie Awards. I don't, and this was quite a while ago, and I don't want to dig in my memory for the names, but I won three of them.
2 for writing.
Two for
And-
writing and one for directing. Yeah.
Yeah, producers don't generally have a category to get Obies under, but plays that I picked and produced got Obies, like 20 or so. And then when I was all washed up, they gave me an Obie for lifetime achievement. Just like, the pastor's over there, laddie. Go munch on some grass.
Oh.
Oh,
I love the Obies, but the year I got it was the year of the pandemic.
Oh.
And so there was no party. So that's the main, to me, the main fun of an Obie would probably be celebrating with your friends and colleagues.
Yeah.
So I was in a garden in New Orleans to give my speech.
I do want to ask, because we've mentioned a couple times how like as playwrights and as creatives get older, there are challenges that they face. For example, Emily and I don't own a theater. We don't have something where we can somewhat actively be advocates for these up and coming playwrights or these well established playwrights. So, in both of your perspectives, how can we as non theater owning people be better advocates for these very established playwrights?
Just what you're doing right now.
Yeah.
When you're having us on this podcast, which is great. That's a tough question. I mean, I would go to the theater a lot, go to little theaters in your neighborhood in Minneapolis or wherever you are and support like local small companies just by showing up. Or if you're part of the press there, by writing about them or drawing attention to the small theaters in your town or near you, right? That's the best
community
answer
theater.
I can think of offhand, right?
There was a period when the community was most imperiled. I feel like there was not enough self-reflection on our part to lift every voice, to try to understand each other.
Mm-hmm.
And I've just censored myself.
Well, it is kind of like we got mean and contemptuous, and it did feel like that.
So I felt like it was important to model another option. And I know what I was going to say. When things were at their most tumultuous, I'd say there was even pushback against the audience and blaming the audience for the troubles people were having in securing an audience. And I think a lot of those folks are seniors as well. And I was at Playwrights Horizons when it was a subscription. No one really does subscriptions too much anymore. which is a shame because they're one way to ensure that you have audiences at every phase of your uh, marketing efforts. But I feel like doing plays and celebrating artists that have a universal appeal is an important part of this effort.
I would say that. So supporting local theaters, going to the theater often, making sure that
Yeah.
we're celebrating a multitude of creatives. Um, I'm going to be honest. My knowledge of like playwrights and um, I'm losing my words, so excuse me. But my knowledge of like the very intricate nature of theater is very small. So, do you have any suggestions of how to build that better knowledge of playwrights or better knowledge of people who are creating these theatrical works?
Well, again, again, I'd sort of repeat what I said. If wherever you are locally, there's going to be some small theater companies around, and to
Hmm.
go see them and take an interest in their work, and if you can, to be a part of their board of directors or their supporters in some way. Theater's a funny thing, you know. It's not reproducible in the same way as a pop song or a movie, where you can make 50 billion copies and broadcast it 40,000 ways. And the audiences are in the millions and millions and millions of people. And everyone in China can see it as well. It's a different sort of beast. And I like to flatter myself in that I work in it, and Tim works in it, that it's because of that very smallness is the wrong word. Ephemeral is the right word. It fades away into the mist. It's gone when it's gone. And that makes it more precious in a way. And experiences that can be had in the theater, when the theater's at its best, there's nothing that we can really come up to it, I don't think, when it's good. It's when it's good, it's very, very good.
Yes.
You know, when
And
I would try to get to know my audience, or when the next level up, when they became supporters or patrons, and I would ask them, when did you first uh, get drawn to the work of Playwrights Horizons? They would almost always name a play, and was never the play that went on to get the Tony or Pulitzer Prize. Um, it was usually a play that I dare say, if I gave off examples of five of them, you would never have heard of any of these writers. And that's or the play that someone would see and say, "Thank God for the subscription, because I go because I have the ticket, and I know I wouldn't have come to see this play otherwise." And now it's a play that, while Len is right, theater is ephemeral. It also gets stuck inside of people,
yeah,
particularly the actors who are doing. They have to absorb so much, and what happens to all that good stuff? Ingesting the souls of other artists. It goes on. It lives on inside. You
It-
can
it's
see
really
I have
true.
a romantic streak in.
This is a sad thing. I sometimes think the actors are the only ones who who really have the experience of what I've done, right?
Mm.
They actually have to memorize the damn thing, right? Well, it goes by the audience once. And I've known there's a very wonderful actor who died recently, was also a friend of mine, named Mark Margolis. I'll mention him. He was also on Breaking Bad and did some more high profile things, but he's a great stage actor. And he was in a play of mine many, many years ago, 30 years ago. He could recite the entire speeches of it to me 30 years afterwards
Wow.
that he
wow.
done.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mark was in Mark was in a play by Marlena Meyer called Moe's Lucky Seven, probably 30 years ago.
Yeah, this was a
Wow.
play. This was a play of mine called My Uncle Sam, where he played the lead, and he really still knew it after all that time. So,
That's incredible.
yeah.
Actors are amazing. There's an actor named Harris Yulin who's very close to a writer named Steve Tessage, who won an Academy Award for Breaking Away, but I don't think he won any Tonys. But he was trying to figure out his play, and we were in previews, and overnight he wrote a 1.5-page monologue, gave it to Harris, who 4 hours later was on stage off book of that really, really long monologue. They're just extraordinary people, actors. I really love them.
Kind of along those lines, from both of your perspectives, you take awe in the actors. I'm going to take awe and take it a step further and give awe to the creative team that's behind the actors, because they don't always get the recognition from the audience. What they see are just the actors. But even with that, they're being supported by the work that's underneath them. So, what's been kind of mulling around in my brain has been, what do you do as playwrights, or what do you look for when developing a piece of work to set up the creative team and the actors for the most amount of success?
Well, one thing we have a teeny tiny staff. Now, I told you we have a managing director, but one thing we do have is a casting office. They're freelance and they have steady jobs elsewhere, and they're not making a living from what they're getting from us, but they're really important collaborators. So the first thing you have to do if you want to do anything with a play, from producing it to just doing a reading of it, you need to find those actors. And you can get on the phone or the email. I can't believe I said the phone. You can get on the email and you can solicit actors and get them that way. But sometimes you're stuck and you really need someone who knows the whole field, which our casting office does. So that's one example of a hidden behind the scenes artist. Then you have a director who really becomes important in a production. You got a design team. When you have a great design team, it's not just someone who puts together a pretty set. It's a whole other way to look at the play, because plays are done in life, in real time, and the people who are creating those pictures are providing a real insight into aspects of it we don't think of it when we're just thinking of plays dramaturgically.
Yeah, those are really important choices. I mean, who designs the work and who does all that thing that you don't see so directly as the actors. The director is a person with an overwhelming responsibility in the theater. And I've been watching Tim's wife, May, work on my play recently. I glanced over at her script the other day, which is entirely covered with notes, so of all kinds. And I should mention something else. There are always new people that you work with, but for me, if you work for a while in the theater, you get to trust certain people with your work who have an immediate and close sense of what you're doing. And I couldn't be happier at the moment that my favorite sound designer in the world is working on this current show with us. It's someone I also do a podcast with, by the way.
Oh.
So yeah. So
If you don't mind me asking, would you like to give them a shout out?
yeah, his name is John Kilgore. He's a wonderful recording engineer, and he also does sound design. And he and I have done one 10-hour long podcast, and we're working on another at the moment. So
Wow.
we'll see where that goes.
Like 10 hours straight?
No, did I say 10 hours? No. It's 10 episodes.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
I'm sorry. Each episode, it's a fictional episode. It's not like what
fantastic.
you do. And each episode is around 10 to 12 minutes. But the one we're doing now is much more free form.
Trey, when you were asking about the people behind the scenes, did you have something in mind?
Not necessarily. Like I've worked in theaters before where people are always applauding the actors, and I always like to make sure that the people behind the scenes are equally as recognized. Because I believe, Tim, you made the point, everything is intentional. The director is selected, who you choose as costume designer, who you choose as sound designer. Everything is intentional, and they all have to work together. The people who we all see immediately are going to be the actors, yes, but it's all with an intention and setup along the way in order to make sure that everything is so cohesive. So no one specifically, it was just an intention to give credit to everybody under the tent, not just the main performers.
Right. That's appreciated.
Yeah, I think it's producing a play, or especially in an artistic, a non-for-profit like I was at, it's not immediately apparent where the artfulness comes in to that position. A lot of times when you're queried, well, about what's it like being artistic director, it must be hard trying to raise all that money all the time, and they don't. Not everyone necessarily immediately appreciates the stages that a play goes through in getting developed. The development is imminent from the writers. You start with a play. That's a point I didn't finish on when I was saying, it's a lonely project putting together a play, and writers they need community because they're dependent upon that community to make their work come to life. And that community also is your audience. You need an audience for things to come to life. So that putting together of stuff, which I did, which a producer does, is an artistic activity. It's dependent upon you. I used to go to plays like 5 times a week for up to 30 years. So that's the best way to prepare yourself to make theater, is to know what's out there and know what the choices are.
The other thing that I want to kind of go back to, and Len, I'm directing this to you as a playwright. What are some of the considerations that you have when crafting a play? Where do you strike the balance between too much directing while writing versus too freeform and anarchy?
Oh, that's not such an easy question. The directing while writing, I think if you do playwriting for a while, you learn to do less and less of this on the page, right? You learn to do less of specifying where actors go in a space. You start, true for me anyway, specify less about colors, less about the furniture, less about the set, a lot less about how actors say their lines, angrily, loudly, softly, or anything like that. Because you quickly find any kind of reading, when you make that kind of directorial notion on the page, and then you see an actor do the opposite and realize it's better, it leads you very quickly to stop doing so much of that. So, but this direct, giving a long talk here, directing on the page as a playwright, I think in the end is really a matter of taste. I used to teach playwriting, and I used to mostly be in favor of less of that, but some people had a lovely talent for it. If you read a writer like, I don't know, Tennessee Williams or a lot of others, they'll be very specific. They'll say, an orange couch is upstage left, and there's a stand, and they're very specific about set and about a bunch of directorial things. And I've read some scripts in my time, I forget the names of the author, where they do absolutely nothing. There's nothing but the talk. They don't even tell you where you are. And there's nothing about time and place. And just the talk begins. So it's a balance, and it's what people are really comfortable in the end. I don't do that much of it anymore. I used to do much more of it. I hope that is that kind of an answer to your question. I hope
No, it
somewhat.
is.
Yeah.
Like what I hear is it comes with like time and experience, and seeing what was in your head doesn't necessarily translate to what's good on stage. So you
Oh,
kind of
it never does. In what we're doing right now, they're working on this play of mine. I'm watching, and I'm surprised all the time by how lines are delivered, by where people are. You know, it's all quite new to me in some way, right? And which is great. So,
What is there a way you prefer, or is there a way that whether someone writes in a lot of little to direct something that has a lot of direction or already put in there, or something that allows you to be a lot more flexible or creative?
I mean, there's no real answer to that.
Okay.
I have worked with a director in the past, and the first thing she ever did was cross out every direction in the script. Yeah. It's Joanne, Tim, for your. I'm
We're
just.
gonna name her.
I won't even mention last names, but Tim and them.
I know what Joanne.
She would just take out all of that stuff because she wanted it to come in a fresh way from her, for better or worse.
Sure.
So
You know, I had a book that I'm hawking. I've recently finished it, and I'm looking for a publisher. And the main content of this book are interviews that I did with playwrights that I produced over the said 30 years. And we would always talk about how plays began, and almost every single time, writers purport that the play is dictating to them what it wants to be, and that I've come to see the truth of that. The hardest thing for them then is actually going back into that channeling stage that the creation of the play came forth from. And if you have to do something technical, if you want to draw something out dramaturgically, re-immersing yourself into that voice that gave birth to the play is so that you can authentically noodle things that need to be noodled is really the one of the crowning achievements of being a playwright. I don't know if I've said something you agree
no,
with.
it's very true. It's very difficult that to get back into that place from which the text originally came. And that's even sharper if I look at a play I wrote some years afterwards, and I will actually take a step back and say, I wonder who wrote this. When I know I did it, right? But I don't know how anymore.
Hmm.
I don't know whether that's a help or that's clear.
Yeah.
I mean, I wonder if the same thing is true because Emily, I know that you are a photographer, you have sewn costumes and things. So I'm curious, have you ever looked back at some of your work and gone, man, who made that? Was that really
Yeah.
me?
Yeah.
Oh, good.
I'm typically I'm thanking my past self for doing something with it that helped my current self, whether it was adding the right size pockets or some other way to adjust something that wasn't that I forgot that I had done. You know, it's like when you get your winter coat out for the first time, you know, in whatever winter month you might have, and there's a $20 bill in the pocket, and you go, "Oh, look at that! I'm going out for lunch today." You know, so I feel like for sure, and with other things too, even writing. Sometimes you know you look back and go, "Wow, who was that wrote that?" But yeah, I can relate.
You know, there was a great interview. I don't know, can't remember the guy's name whose show it was, but he's interviewing Paul McCartney. And Paul talked about yesterday that he woke up in the morning and that song was complete inside of him. He sat down and banged it out, and you know, George Martin added some strings later, but it pretty much was. It's kind of scary to think about what seems like the only explanation seems that we're living in a spiritual world and can't let go of our materialism. top that. I've left them speechless again.
Well, I was thinking about adding on
good.
to it too, but like, you know, if we weren't growing and if we weren't changing with the times and with our, you know, with that open mind of doing better and creating differently and growing, then we wouldn't be able to look back at these old works of ours and say things like, who wrote that? You know, what memory aside, you know, I feel like that's a good thing. Because
I
if you
think
were the same sorry.
no, go ahead.
It just we're not the same people as we were.
No,
And
and
hooray.
yeah, I don't want to see work from my 22-year-old self anymore. I would much rather see the current work. And I think it's because you don't want to live inside an echo chamber forever, because that you never get better, you never see a different perspective. So if you aren't challenging yourself with other external stimuli, then you're never really going to grow artistically or much emotionally.
Yeah, I think that's where a community like the tent is important as well. To come full circle.
Yeah.
So you have a play at the tent happening now. What
Yeah,
is in the future for the tent?
I can't.
We're
You
we're
have to
going to
ask Tim.
announce we're going to announce another play soon. I'm
Okay.
waiting to hear on a potential performing space first before we do that. But that should be in the summer. And then my goal would be to do 2 plays a year
Okay.
and continue to do a reading every month and keep going with the bookstore event was fantastic. We didn't talk much about it, but
Oh yeah, tell us about that.
Glenn was one of the
I was
we got
part of it.
7
Yeah.
writers. Of our writers came out and read 5 to 8 minutes of stuff that they're working on, and I guess they have a mailing list or something. We invited some people, so some people maybe it was just word of mouth, but that place, which is in the Lower East Side, don't have an address for you, but it's called uh, B-
B&T Knitwear.
BNT Knitwear.
They
Uh,
kept the old store name.
Interesting.
Yeah.
yeah, we
Now,
did we did that, and it was packed, and there was such a good energy, and all of the writers were 65 to 85,
That's
uh,
awesome.
and really lively and funny and challenging and moving. Um, so we'll keep looking for opportunities to bring our writers out to public attention and hopefully continue to expand what we're doing.
That's wonderful.
And I mean, if you ever go on tour, I mean, just gotta say, Charlotte is a great place. Well, I have just a couple more questions for you, if you'll indulge me. And this one is not really theater based, but I like asking this question to see where you go with it. And you're both welcome to answer separately. You are sitting down to lunch, and you can have lunch with anybody in the world, alive or dead. Who are you having lunch with, and why?
all right, I'll answer the question in a funny way.
Okay.
My answer would be the playwright Samuel Beckett, and I'll tell you why. Years ago, I was in Paris, and a friend of mine was there, a wonderful actor who was a friend of the playwright Beckett. And he said, I'm going to see Sam. Would you like to come along? And so I had this opportunity to meet an amazing, wonderful writer that I had a lot of respect for and interest in. Only I was with my daughter at the time, and she was young, and she said, I want to go shopping. I want to go to the vintage stores. And I made a choice to go to the vintage stores with her, and I never got to meet him. So your phantom lunch would be a good place to do that. Here's my little story.
Wow.
It's true.
Yeah, I believe it. I believed it was. Wow.
That is a
That's
great
incredible.
answer.
Yeah. Sorry, Trey.
Very good. Tim, what about you?
Well, your question reminded me of a story my youngest son told me when he was interviewing to go to he's in the public school system in New York City, and they have magnet programs. So the place, and someone's hot, someone's cold. The place that everyone was hot, that was most competitive to get into, I think was up near Fordham. I can't remember exactly where it was, but he was interviewed by a couple teachers and a couple of students, and one of the students asked that question, and the person he was with said, I know it sounds corny, but my family, because they've been so much to me. And my son said, Charles Manson. And they went like, oh, you must not want to go here. And he said, aren't you curious, like, what would make some human become who Charles Manson was?
Mm-hmm.
And so I was almost going to give a smart ass reply, but who I can think of just off I would love to talk to my father and my mother again. But one of the people, a growingly dear friend of mine, is Craig Lucas, who is a writer I produced many times. He's got the most lively encyclopedic mind. I mean, he can jump to anything. He's read everything. He's filled with light and love and stories. So just it's a little bit like when I was driving with my kids and they say, "What's your favorite Beatles album?" And I'd say, "Don't do such a thing. You can't."
That is hard. It is a tough question.
So
Yeah.
that's my answer to you. Take it or leave it.
I will take it. Great answer.
Have you ever answered that question, Trey, for yourself?
I've had differing answers throughout the years.
Okay. I couldn't remember if we'd ever done that to each other on the show.
No, but we should answer that at some point.
Maybe
We'll save that for a special occasion.
for a particularly evil episode, we will ask each other the same questions we ask our guests.
And put ourselves on the spot like we do when we're not expecting it.
Right. We'll ask all the hard ones. That'll be great.
I think these are the moments from which your fan base was made.
Probably, possibly.
Yeah, or it's the times when Emily would give me a lot of dirty looks when I admitted that I hadn't seen the Lord of the Rings films.
Yeah.
That more lore.
Or read the books, or
Or read
yeah.
the books. Okay, yeah, we won't drudge that up. But last question for you. For those that are getting into playwriting, or those that are established playwrights looking to kind of diversify a little bit, what advice do you have for them?
What did you mean by the diversify?
Looking to expand, looking to try something different. Just really kind of anything.
I mean, my inclination would be to tell them to go for it. And that my experience in writing in other formats has done nothing but sort of enrich and strengthen what I do for the stage. So I would encourage people to write fiction, or to write poems, or to write for television or novels or any other format, and let whatever juice comes to them from that feed into the playwriting as well. I mean, in my case, I think that's been really useful, you know. So I think it's a good
I
idea.
agree. I mean, I'm not the artist, but there are several. Len has written novels. several of the people who were at that P&T Netwear event had novels as well. I think. But on the other, conversely, I also think that playwriting is something you should do if you have a calling. You shouldn't it's not a strategy to make it in Hollywood or anything. It's like a really, really hard thing to do that takes a long time to master, or not even to master, to wrestle with, to even be on even footing with it. So respect that. Respect those unconscious impulses, creative impulses, I'd say. So I agree with Len.
Great responses. Thank you both.
Yeah, solid advice.
Yeah. Well, Len, Tim, I want to thank you so much. You both have given like a wealth of knowledge and some really great insight into the work that you do in the theater and in life. So thank you so much for spending this time with us here today.
Yeah, thanks for inviting
Well,
us.
you're welcome. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Thanks.
Well,
yeah.
As we close this episode out, we want to encourage our listening audience to please go check out the Tent Theater. And Emily, do you have that website?
It's the10theater.com.
The10theater.com.
Yeah.
ER. Tent Theater, ER, not RE.
Oh, that's good to note. That is correct. Yes.
Thank you. So go check that out. If you are in or can get access to the Hell's Kitchen area, please go see Len's new play. Previews start on February 3rd and run through the 22nd.
That sounds about right.
Okay.
Yeah. Great.
I was looking to Tim for, please tell me that's right.
Oh,
I have
that's
it written
correct.
down.
I said nothing because it was perfect.
Yeah.
Yes. So thank you so much for tuning in with us here today. If you want more behind the scenes content and access to other things that you do not see during the airing of our podcasts, go check out our Patreon. You can find us at TheModRom on Patreon. Or you can check out our website, themodrom.com, for links and access to previous episodes. Thanks so much for tuning in. And remember, there's room under the tent for everyone. Have a great day, everybody.
For sure.
Nice.
Have a great night.
Bye.
Thank you. You too.